I don't know about you, when I'm looking for a plumber, I like to read my reviews. HomeAdvisor.com gave me some reviews on our sponsor, Art of Plumbing. Called them. They arrived on time. Immediately found the plumbing issue and fixed it right the first time. I called them last year and it was great. I called them again this year because I had a problem again. They came out, they fixed the problem. They even gave me solutions to help stop the problem in the future at 541-9405. As I sit down with my guest today, author Tracey Maxfield, she takes us through the journey. The journey of what we're referring to is this escaping the rabbit hole. And it's a book that she's written about her journey through depression. Now, I don't know about you, but that to me causes so many questions to come to mind. And we kind of get into that in this episode. I hope you can hang around for this because this may be an episode much like last week's episode with Darkness that really could change someone's life for the better. I believe my guest is super articulate in explaining her story, and I think you're going to just be riveted by the information that was shared. I hope you're ready for this, because you know I am. So here we go.
Hey, come take a walk with me, not like you used to do. Do something different and put yourself in other people's shoes. Open up your mind and open up your eyes and change your direction, change your perspective.
Welcome into Other People's Shoes, of course. I am your host, Neil Matthews. We are sitting today remotely with our guest today, and let me introduce our guest today. I am so excited to sit down with this wonderful lady, and I think you're going to hear that too come out in this talk that we're doing today. She, of course, is a registered nurse. She has a bachelor's degree in science and nursing, and really is a specialist in a lot of respects to dementia and gerontology. She has quite a few certifications, CDP, GNC, and DDS. She's a speaker. She's an educator. She's a consultant. She's an advocate. She's a peer specialist. And now we can add this to her list of accolades and resume. She's an author, and that's why she's coming on today. She's going to be talking about her book, Escaping the Rabbit Hole, My Journey Through Depression. Help me welcome my guest, Tracey Maxfield. Tracey, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
You know, I am better than I deserve, I always like to say. So, Tracey, where are you today, if we can, as of this phone call?
As of this phone call, I am in Kelowna, British Columbia in Canada.
So you're our first international guest on our show. So we're going to celebrate that for a minute. Thank you for being our first one. I'm excited about that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, Canada.
Canada.
When I was a elementary schooler, I was a big fan of hockey. Still sort of am, not as much as I should be. But I was a big fan of the Winnipeg Jets. So that's my only Canadian connection. And then in the World Series back in the, oh gosh, this is dating me, 92, 93 era, I was a big Blue Jays fan because I loved Toronto baseball.
Right.
And the Blue Jays, Joe Carter, I remember those World Series that the Blue Jays won back-to-back with the Braves and then the Phillies. So there we are. So there's my Canada connection, if there is one. I don't know. We're going to stretch on that one maybe. But Tracey, thanks so much for coming on today. And we got to ask this very important question before we get too far down into your story and all that. And that's this. Tracey, what size shoes do you wear?
7.
Are you a 7? Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I think that's about average for most women from what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
And then,
I'm a
Tracey,
7.
do you have a special shoe that you wear or a style of shoe that you just love to wear that when you wear them, you're like, oh, yeah, I'm feeling good now?
Yeah. Heels, high heels.
High heels. Okay. All right.
I'm a strut your stuff high heel girl.
I like it. I always joke that we're actually in your shoes. So for my listeners, don't try to picture me in high heels and strutting my stuff right about now. That's would be completely inappropriate. No. not going there, not at all. So Tracey, I want to jump into this right away. I'm not one of those that likes to wade in the water. I'm a cannonball kind of guy. I've said that a few times too, but
Go for it. Yeah.
but here we go. So Tracey, your book's amazing. I know it's doing really well for you. It's selling like crazy. You're winning awards, and we're gonna get into that obviously too. But I gotta ask, because I've heard a couple of interviews that you've given. I personally have not read the book, so maybe we can talk about that. I'd love to get a copy perhaps and read it myself personally, but I have not read it yet. In full disclosure, so with that being said, I am curious about this. Can we really trust our feelings? Can I personally trust my feelings? Can you personally trust your feelings? And do our feelings betray us?
That's a tough question. I trust my feelings, but I think the challenge is with everything that goes on in the world and with what we're dealing internally, I think we sometimes misinterpret our feelings. And we act maybe a little bit too reactive instead of taking a step back and becoming more proactive and analyzing them. I've had to learn to do that.
So that's a learned skill in learning to be, as you said, proactive in those steps, right?
I think, as human beings, we all know that we want to be liked, right? We want to be known to do our best. We want people to like us. And whenever something happens to us, we personalize it and we internalize it. And that in itself creates the sadness and the anger and the anxiety and the stress and the depression. And the more we react and not respond or interpret our feelings, I think that's why it can be kind of skewed, right? I'm sad, I'm angry, but why are you? What is the root cause of that? And I don't think a lot of people actually sit back and think, why is it that they're angry? Because as you know, you may be angry at a person, but it's really not about the person. It stirred up something, maybe from your past or something that happened weeks ago that you're now attaching to that person. Does that make sense?
I think it does. Is anger really like a secondary emotion, do you feel like, or is anger a primary emotion a lot of times? Just on that topic of anger.
I think anger is a secondary emotion in response to the primary, but many people mistake it as the primary.
Okay.
Right. So there's a saying that depression is anger turned inwards.
Say that again, if you wouldn't mind. Say that statement again. I really liked what you said there.
So there is a saying where they say depression is really anger turned inwards.
Yeah.
So your reactions...
Was that your experience? Sorry to cut you off. Was that your experience with that?
I think partly, yes, it would be, but my initial thoughts was the hurt and the blame, but really it still translates into it was anger towards the bully for what she had done and had gotten away with. So, and since I've explored my past, it's the anger, the abuse I endured as a child has led to all the other feelings and emotions that I've experienced since then. And so, yes, I think at the core, it's anger that's never dealt with.
Yeah. I know just on a little side note with me, I grew up as a very angry child. I know you mentioned in, as I said, a couple of different talks that you've given that you've gone through counseling, you've gone through some kind of self-awareness of helping you get through these feelings, right? And so, I myself, I raised my hand. I've been to counseling too, and it's tough. I mean, to really dig into who we are and really dig into the essence of who we are, I think is something all of us should do. And I love that you're working with that. And I love that you're working with young people too. That's a passion of mine also. And I'm excited that you've given a lot of young people, especially in Canada, not only in Canada, but even in the U.S., a sense of a voice and helping them find their voice. And I think from that standpoint, Tracey, you're doing some excellent work in that regard. And I'm really pleased again to have you on. So, Tracey, two dates jump out to me, and maybe they'll jump out to you when you hear them. August 20th, 2015, and then April 30th, 2018. Why are those two dates important to you, do you feel like?
August 20th, 2015 was the day I fell down the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And then April 2018, you said April 13th, 2018?
Yeah. Sorry, did I get it wrong? April 30th, 2018. Yeah.
Was the day my book was published, was the book release party. So yes, those are two very significant dates, a kind of a beginning, which then had a conclusion.
Right.
And days that I never ever imagined would ever happen. I never ever in my wildest dreams thought, I would write a book, but also when I was in the rabbit hole, not for 1 minute did I ever feel I could ever get out, because it was that intense, that deep, that it was so claustrophobic and overwhelming and just sucked the life out of me. And one of the reasons why I finally decided to write the book, it was just to me, because I couldn't imagine having other people out there going through what I did and thinking that they would never ever get better and there was no hope. And I wanted to be kind of that voice that said, yes, you will, you will, you will. You got to trust me. You got to believe me. I made it out, and I honestly never thought I would, and you can too. And I think, and that was kind of the start.
Yeah, I think that's great. Could you, if you're willing, could you take me back to that day on April 20th? Or sorry, August 20th.
August 20th.
August 20th.
Yeah,
could you take me back to that day, that moment, that everything just kind of, I don't want to say imploded, but I don't have another word to describe it.
So basically it was the culmination of 4.5 years of intense workplace bullying, which had escalated to the extremes. On that day, a meeting had been called by my bully under the pretense of me returning to my job that she had wrongly removed me from 8 weeks previously. And so she had been instructed by the hierarchy that she had no business doing that, and I was to return to my job. And it was to talk about me returning to work. And when I went in, I had 2 union reps with me because I have really good instinct, and my gut instinct told me this was not going to be a good meeting by any means. And when we sat down, she opened an enormous file folder, like it was so big, and it immediately began with, I want you to know that you're returning to work, but everyone hates you and no one wants you back. I've spoken to every single person in the hospital and everyone is so glad that you've left. Now, can you imagine hearing that?
Yeah.
I mean, I was worn down as it was with just all the constant bullying and then the exclusion and isolation which I was subjected to. And I was very, very good at my job, and actually I was very popular and well respected. And to be told that every single person, that was when I could feel like a little crack start in my heart. And from that point on, it was 1.5 hours of personal slurs and insults, false allegations, lies. And even though we were able to correct everything and set the record straight, the very fact that they had come out of her mouth and hurled at me, it just crushes you. I felt like she had grabbed my heart and my soul and just literally tore it out of my body. And it was just, I never cried. I was not angry. I was extremely calm. And what was interesting was an acquaintance had given me a book a week before by Carolyn Myth. And in it, she had said, don't let anyone ever take your power. And I wrote that on a notebook when I went into the meeting, and I sat there and I just kept looking at it. And it said, don't let her take your power. And that kind of kept me focused as everything was being hurled at me, because human nature is you want to stand up and scream and say, that's not true. How dare you? But I thought, just keep calm. Just get through this. But at the culmination of the meeting, she was under the impression that I would be returning to work a few days later. And I stepped outside with the two representatives, and we looked, and they were actually crying. They said that in all their years of working, they had never, ever experienced anything like that meeting. It was like a witch hunt. And we looked at each other and said, how can you possibly go back and work for her? Like, how could you possibly, after all the unbelievably horrible things that she had said, how could you possibly go back and work? And I felt empty. I think that's the best way to describe it. I felt absolutely empty. And when I got home, that's when I started crying. And I actually went to bed because I felt like I just have to sleep. I can't even figure this out. I'm so exhausted. I cried and cried and cried and fell asleep. And the next morning, I woke up. I was in the rabbit hole.
Wow.
It was, so it was that, when you've gone through an experience and your brain is almost buzzing and you can't really function, you feel like you're walking down an airplane and there's a little bit of turbulence. And everything is kind of distorted. And that's how I felt when I went home on the Thursday. And even the concept of trying to write it out and problem solve was so overwhelming. All I could think was just go to bed, just sleep and try again in the morning. Except when I woke up in the morning, that's when it had really hit, because in the book I say I thought I'd had a stroke because I could not move. And so that was the point that I had then fallen down the rabbit hole. My brain was, and my psychologist likened it to, it was a piece of glass and it was fractured, like just smashed to bits.
Yeah.
And so it began.
Well, first off, Tracey, thanks so much for taking us back to that day. I know you maybe have shared that in a number of places, or maybe not. I don't know. But thank you. Thank you for giving us that little glimpse of kind of what it was like that day. I'm curious, did you or have you forgiven the person that was the source of this?
I had to.
Okay. What did that look like?
I had. I think it was probably about a year into my therapy, and it was 1 year of very, very intensive therapy. And at that point, I had started expressing gratitude with the journal and trying to switch my mindset. And I had written a letter to myself, which is actually in the book. And I went to see my psychologist, and I said, I think the only way I can truly move forward and try and leave everything behind is to forgive the bully for what she's done. And it's not going and talking to her. It's not sending her a letter. It's me just writing in my journal and verbally expressing to my psychologist that I forgive. Just kind of putting a shoe on the other foot in that, I don't know what's going on in her life, what had happened to her. I don't know why it was that she felt so threatened and intimidated, and what was going on in the workplace that she felt she would take it out on me. It's easy for me to look at the bad side and the negative, especially because through discovery we found out I was her 8th victim, and nothing was dealt with until she met her 12th victim. So this was very much a habitual pattern for her. But I had to forgive. I couldn't carry anger and hatred and revenge with me. I had to let it go in order to continue to move forward. And I think lots of people keep misconstruing what forgiveness means. It's not forgiving them for all what they did to you. It's just allowing yourself to forgive them and then moving on without having to carry all the negativity with you, if that makes sense. It's kind of like, I don't agree with what you did. It's not right. And I'm really sorry that you haven't been taken to task for it. But I have my own life, and I want to move forward a better person. And so I'm offering a token of forgiveness in order that I can break free of kind of those chains that are holding me back and move forward to my future.
But have you
And
ever,
that's how
have you ever thought back to if this doesn't happen, this confrontation, having the union reps, do you think that in any way maybe elevated the meeting at all? And then the second part to that is, if this doesn't happen, do you write this book?
I don't think I would have written the book if I hadn't got to the point of forgiveness, because everything changes your mindset at that point. Having the union leaders there didn't escalate the meeting by any means. It's protocol there and it's expected, but she had come prepared.
Okay. Yeah, I just was curious about that. That's all.
Yeah. No. She basically, because of events that had happened in the 6 months prior, she was out to exact her revenge. That's the only way I could put it, and to take me down, period.
Wow.
And so, yes, you have to ultimately feel sorry. And I when I talk about this, when I'm talking about bullying and suicide and mental illness with children and teenagers, and I have to say, you have to look at what's going on in the bully's life as well. To me, there's a reason for every behavior. Good, bad, happy, sad, it does not matter. There is a reason behind every single behavior, and you have to understand what that reason is in order to understand the behavior and respond appropriately. And as I said, I had to get to that point of forgiveness. And it's funny because when I've given talks, and I've said, and in my book, I have said, I consider what happened to me a gift. As horrible as it was, and as much as I never ever want to repeat it again, I see it as a gift because it enabled me to move into a different area of my life. I call it my new life journey, a much better and more changed person than I was before. And I'm very thankful for that. And many people that have gone through similar catastrophic, traumatic events have said the same thing. You certainly come out of there stronger, and you come out with a very different perspective of what is important in life, and you want to help others. And so, to me, yes, it was a gift. It is a gift.
think that's such a great perspective on that. And I love what you're saying too, just about having the empathy for people. Obviously, that's right up our alley as well, right? Walking in someone else's shoes, trying to understand their perspective, understand their story. And I think that's what, at least for me, and maybe even Garrett too, of course, he's off air, so he's just going to have to nod. But I think that's what was so appealing to both of us and about your story and about kind of what you've walked through is like, here's a person, you, right, Tracey, that has gone through this traumatic event and have persevered through it and just really didn't allow that to define who you were. Maybe at the moment it may have defined who you were, but you did not allow that continue to define who you are. And I think that to me is why you have such a compelling story, and that's why we're excited to have you on. So I'm curious too, and by the way, great strength walking through that. I don't know many people that could have done that. So if we were face to face, I would definitely shake your hand, probably give you a hug and say, man, way to go, girl. Way to keep pushing. So
thank you.
So with that, I'm curious too, and maybe you have some stats, maybe you don't, but how many people do you really believe are stuck kind of in this rabbit hole? And I know we're using rabbit hole as a kind of a placeholder or a place, really, even. But I mean, how many people do you think really are still stuck in that mode of not being able to get out?
Oh my goodness, so many. Because mental illness has such a stigma attached to it. I mean, the statistics they say is that 1 in every 4 adults is living with a mental illness, and 1 in 5 children and teenagers are living with a mental illness or disorder. But that's only stats they know of people that have reported it. There are so many more that either do not recognize they're in a rabbit hole, or out of guilt or shame, based on, what they've been told about depression and mental illness, and they either won't tell anyone and seek help, or they think they can get out themselves without receiving help. Of those that have even been diagnosed with depression, I think everyone that's had a major depression, some have likened it to rabbit holes, many have likened it to a well. Many have said that they're hanging on a ledge with a weight on their feet. Others have said they're in a cornfield. And so it's that perception of out of control, helplessness, trapped, unable to find a way out. They say 80% of the world's population is living with depression. That's huge. 80% of the world's population is living with a form of depression.
That is insane. 80%?
80%. It's
oh
huge.
My gosh.
Yes. And I mean, I think what's so startling is that it affects everyone, right? It despite all the information and the stories that have been shared, the misinformation and the old wives' tales and the stigma persists, and that's what prevents so many people either from getting help or from being open and sharing their story. Because what will a neighbor say? What will my friend say? Because we know every time something happens, some bad incident happens, say, for example, the shootings, immediately the media portrays the person as must be mentally ill. And so we have a picture conjured of what a mentally ill person is like and what they're capable of doing, which is completely untrue. But, the media are not kind. As soon as they diagnose without any information, all of us out there that are living with one form or other of a mental disorder, and there's over 200 different mental illnesses or disorders, our hearts just sink because they prey on the 1% who have the psychopathic tendencies, and then, kind of judge everyone as being the same. And I've recently tried to change my wording from mental illness to mental disorder.
Why the change?
because of the stigma with mental illness, but because of the work that I'm doing, we know that it's a mental disorder, right, in one of the 6 domains of the brain that ultimately results in a mental illness. And I'm trying to get people to understand that your brain and body are one. They cannot function without one another. In fact, the brain is the most important organ because it controls all your body systems. You would not be able to eat, sleep, walk, move, breathe, heartbeat without your brain. And so I'm stressing the component of understanding how important brain or mental health is and what you need to do to look after your mental health, and also then how to respond and identify stress and feelings as they're normal, developing strategies to cope with them so you don't get overwhelmed by them. But, I mean, it's a disorder is just one of those domains, is not working as well as it should. And so that's why I prefer to use that as opposed to illness, because mental illness, as soon as you say it, you can see people look, you can see eyebrows raised, you can feel them cringing, because the first thing that comes into mind is a crazed person running down the street, killing people, going into a school, shooting people up. And it's very difficult. Very difficult.
Yeah, and I think that's great that you're trying to change the narrative, change the story, change the terminology, because I think, like you said, so many times the media has a tendency of running ahead, right? Because if it bleeds, it leads. I mean, that's just kind of our culture and our society, which is sad.
Yes.
And I think, so many times that I think that, again, they try to find the most crazy picture they can, I think, of the individual sometimes.
Of course.
And I think it just feeds the narrative. It feeds the fear of the masses. And I think it just, again, it helps pass legislation. It helps put gun control. I mean, we could go down that, not to take your terminology and make light of it, but we could really go down a rabbit hole, or, another wormhole even, with that whole train of thought. Absolutely. I like that a lot of what you're saying there. Tracey, why do you think people can't escape the rabbit hole? Because here's the thing. I don't know if you know this or not, we actually had last week, last Wednesday, our show comes out every Wednesday. We had a gal on, and she was talking about darkness. That's what we entitled the show. And she talks about her husband committing suicide and her depression that ensued from that. And she gave some real practical, I believe, some real practical applications on how she's come out of suicide. She talks about journaling. She talks about, seizing the day, and a lot of the same, which is so cool, because I think this is a great episode to go listen to, and then follow it up with your episode that we're having right now with you. And this is because you both are saying very similar things, like taking each day for, not for granted, but enjoying the day. Like right now, it's sunny outside. We're enjoying the sun. Enjoying walking with my dog, enjoying the flower in the garden, enjoying the river that I may be near. But why do you think people have such a hard time getting out of the rabbit hole? And I like to use the word escaping the rabbit hole. Why do you think that is?
I think it's many things. Certainly escaping the rabbit hole is not easy. It takes work. It takes a lot of work, and it takes a tremendous amount of patience. And we're a very impatient society. Also, we want immediate remedies. There's so many people that think, okay, so the doctor's given you a pill, well, you should be fine now. And it's like, no, the pill helps. It's a part of a plan, but it's a long-term plan that involves much more. And I think it's the instant gratification. It's the I would go and see my psychologist. So the first year was extremely hard. I attempted suicide a few times. I journaled, and it was just darkness. And when am I going to get out of this? And it was just so bleak. And then after about a year, little chinks appeared, and I started to see there was possibly hope. But I would go in and I would say to my psychologist, can't you just give me a day? Can't you say, Tracey, 3 week Sunday, you will be fine. Or 6 months on a Saturday, you will be good. And he would laugh and he'd say, the mind is such an amazing organ. He said, June, your brain has been so fractured by what has happened that it's going to take a long time for it to heal and piece back together the way you want it. And he says, you can't rush this. He says this, and this is why I think it's so frustrating. And I understand people's frustration. You get up and you could have a good day and you think, yes, it's gone. And then you wake up the next day and you're there again. And you're like, what is going on? And I think the more people fight it, the more hopeless and drowning in their own emotions, their own negative emotions, I think takes over. And eventually they just lose their way. You know, they with their impatience or they're unwilling to fight the fight, whatever it may be. It's like, well, these pills are not working, I'm done. Oh, well, he's not working as a counselor, I'm done. No, I'm never going to counseling anymore. They won't look at other options. It's very tunnel vision. And so that's a struggle. Some people actually get so caught up in the world they've created that the thought of moving through more pain with the hope of a better world is so scary that they prefer to stay with what they know because it makes them feel safe.
Do you think maybe that's why? Do you maybe think that's why people embrace the darkness so much? Is because it's more comfortable, it's easier. I can kind of be a little bit of a recluse. I can be a little bit of a turtle. I can become more introverted. Nobody's going to hurt me. It's safer in the darkness.
I think so. Not for everyone, but I think so. There comes a point when you're in that darkness where you reach, I think I call it like there's 3 signs in the middle of the road. And the one sign is you got to keep going and move forward, believing that there is a better future waiting for you. And that's huge leap of faith to keep going with that conviction when you're so overwhelmed and so exhausted. And, you know, you're just like, I can't take this. Then you reach the middle point where this is as far as you're going to go. Are you okay living the rest of your life like this? And they'll say no, but they don't want to take the leap of faith. And then you have the other road, which is, sad to say, suicide. It is death by suicide. And I understand that point. It's just the inability to continue to deal with the constant excruciating pain over and over again. You get to the point where, and I put it in my book so many times, you're physically, you're spiritually, you're socially, you're mentally, you're emotionally drained, exhausted, depleted. And it's just like, I can't do this anymore. I need peace. And that's what they seek. They're not seeking the easy way out. They need to have peace because what goes on in your mind and the turmoil and it's excruciating. The pain is excruciating. And they just need that sense of relief. And that's what I'm trying to get education as well as that people don't need to go that route, but I understand why they do. And I think that's another reason that the book, it's trying to give them hope. I have stood there with the pills. I have, I tried to slit my throat. There's so many things. I have been there. And ultimately, when you realize how close you came, you know deep down that you want to live. It's just the pain is so incapacitating at times. And so you need that hope of, bear with me, keep going, another day, it will get better, another day. But yes, it's hard. And I've known many people that are perpetually stuck in that dark hole because they cannot take a chance on moving forward, fearing that it could be even worse.
Yeah.
It's so difficult.
I am blown away by your honesty and your candor. I just am. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. I have a crazy story I want to share with you. So it's kind of a running joke with my wife and I. So there's a mention, honey. Garrett, mark that down. That I've had a lot of jobs. And in my lot of jobs that I've had, one of the jobs I had, I was actually collecting car payments. And so, you're calling the customer, you're, asking them to make their payment, whatever. People have some point of reference on that. Well, I can't obviously divulge company or person or anything like that due to all kinds of reasons. But I wanted to share this really quick story. So I called this guy up, and he sounded just absolutely uber depressed, just super depressed, couldn't make his payment. And so right before him and I hung up the phone, I said, hey, Mr. Customer, I don't know if you know this or not, but this could probably get me in trouble, but I just want you to know you have value. And he's like, yeah, kind of blew me off. Like, yeah, I'm sure I have value. I'm like, no, listen, hear me. You have value. You may not be valuable to me. Like we may not run in the same circles or the same, friendship group, but you have value. Yeah. Not only do you have value, but you're important to somebody. I don't know why. I just felt led to tell you that, take that for what you will. And he's like, yeah, again, kind of dismissed me and hung up the phone. So this was like on a Friday afternoon. So Monday morning I come into my office and I have my voicemail is pretty full with like 6 voicemails from another individual who is very irate on the voicemails. And so I look up his number through our system and come to find out he's not in our system. I can't find it. So I called the number back, and the gentleman on the phone is very irate, very agitated, very almost like screaming at me. Probably some cuss words were shared. And he's like basically just telling me, did I talk to this guy that I was talking to on Friday? And I looked back in the notes, and I, come to find out I can actually talk to this guy. It's his dad. And so I said, well, what happened? And he's like, well, I just need to know what you said to him. And I said, sir, I can put you on the phone with my supervisor. Can you tell me what happened? Can you tell me what took place? And he goes, and there was a very long pause on the phone, and he I could tell he's a little choked up. And he said, I just want to know, were you the last, did you talk to him on Friday? And I said, I did around this time. And I said, why? What happened? I've asked like 1,000, it feels like 1,000 times, but it was probably only like 10 times. But he finally, again, kind of through choked up tears, he said, his mom and I didn't hear from him. And so we went to his house Saturday because we didn't hear from him Friday night, which is not normal. And so Saturday morning, we went to his house expecting to find him, dead. And he said, we didn't, luckily, blissfully, whatever you want to say there. And he said, we looked at the phone. You were the last number that had called him. And he said, we've got him some help. He said, but I want to know why you felt led to say that to him, what you said. And now I'm like getting emotional on the phone with the guy. And I said, sir, I have a daughter, and I do still. And I said, I would hope that if somebody heard my daughter talking the way my daughter was talking, whether they're know her or not, stranger or not, that they would tell her, hey, you have value, you're important to somebody. And that they would be willing to share that. And he said, you may have saved my son's life. And I'm like, that story has stuck with me. It's been powerful. And I got to tell you, because I think there's so much, again, of what you're saying resonates with me. The fact of, making this difference, whether it be in word or in deed or in anything, our words are powerful, our words are strong. And that's why, obviously I love doing the podcast because, and you being the author, right? We love these mediums because they're allowing us to express how we truly feel about people and that we care. And that, I think that's so important. But I want to go into something. And that's this, is building on that idea of our words, is recently, and maybe not so recently for you, but somebody had made a comment to you that maybe the devil had just gotten inside of you, or you had allowed the devil to come into your life. I know you know this comment because we kind of talked about it pre-show, but I'm asking this from a standpoint to not only, one, that comment was super insensitive, and I know you want to talk about that, and I know you're probably eager to talk about that, but But on that, I want to ask a second part to that question. Maybe you could explain the whole context of that, help us out with that. But then the second part of that I'm curious about is, where does your faith lie? Where do you put your faith in? So maybe those two parts. Explain the devil comment, and then how your faith kind of plays into your story.
Okay, so in my book there is a chapter, the 10 strangest things people said to me when I told them I had depression, and I wanted to use it as an example for people to understand some of the things they say are actually more hurtful and harmful to a person. And that one was the number 10 on the list. It was the creme de la creme. It was a very, very dear friend who was also a nurse, and we'd known each other for a very long time. And I was having a particularly bad day, and I was just talking about how it just sucks the life out of you, having depression, and you just, you can't move forward. You just physically can't, and people just don't understand. They judge you because you appear fine. And she said, well, and she was a very, very Christian person, and she said, well, Tracey, I can tell you why you have depression. I looked at her thinking she was going to give me some psychological, it's all based on, your childhood abuse and things like that. And she said, it's because you opened your heart to the devil and invited him in, and that's why you have depression. And I'm very rarely speechless. I was just gobsmacked. I was stunned. And she said it with such belief and such conviction that she believed it to be true. And I was just horrified, absolutely horrified. And I just had to walk away. And as I'm walking away, I'm like, I cannot believe she's known me for so long. She knows my values and everything, and I cannot believe that she actually thinks that I brought upon the depression myself. And we've never spoken since, never ever, because it hurt in ways that I couldn't even describe, and it actually made me feel very suicidal at that time. I was walking towards traffic and thought, why don't I just run in front of that bus right now and get it over with? But yes, the sad thing is that it's something that many, many people truly believe. This is one of the old wives' tales. This is why there is so much stigma, that many people still believe that it's between God and the devil, and that's why you have a mental illness, and it's a form of punishment. And it isn't, right? It is a real disorder that occurs in the brain, just like you can have a heart problem, blood pressure, arthritis, stomach. And in the work that I have done since the book was released with children and teenagers, there are parents whose children are hurting, and they cannot tell them that they have anxiety or depression because the parents truly believe that they've brought a demon into the house, and they won't go there. And to me, that is in itself a form of child abuse, when you're not allowing your child to seek help because you believe so strongly that it's something else. It's very, very hard. But there are many people that still cling to that, and I think maybe it's easier for them to believe that than to even think that maybe, A, B, and C in your brain is not working as well right now.
So is that is that in a sense turned you off to faith?
No. I was brought up as a Christian. I studied the Bible when I was in school. I studied scripture. in Britain, it was A levels, advanced levels, first level university. I studied scripture, and in my work as a nurse, with gerontology, dementia care, palliative care, you have to accompany people on their journey, regardless of what faith they are.
Right.
And so it's respect and open-mindedness. I would consider myself spiritual versus deeply religious. Having said that, and I've discussed this on a number of podcasts, so the first suicide attempt was 2 days, was the day after I fell down the rabbit hole. So it was on the Saturday evening, and I'd counted out pills, Tylenol, acetaminophen to take. And as a nurse, I knew the amount to take, plus extra. And I brought the first pill up to my mouth with a glass of water, and from nowhere, into my left ear, I just heard this voice say, "Run." That was it. Run. And
where do you think that voice came from?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I mean, other people are telling me that it had to be a higher power. It was not a voice inside my head.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't my voice.
Sure.
I just heard a voice, "Run," and I put the pill back down on the counter and the water, and I ran. I ran down the stairs. I threw on my flip-flops, and I grabbed my purse. And in the book, I talk about it in great detail. I ended up in Walmart at 8 o'clock on a Saturday night, wandering
Thank
the
you,
aisles.
24-hour Walmart, right?
Yeah, exactly. The second attempt, I attempted to smash a champagne bottle and bit my throat. And it was just, I cannot tell you if the voice was male or female. I cannot tell you if the voice was deep or loud. It was like a whisper, but a very legible whisper, and it was just one word: "Run."
Same saying or same ultimatum, I guess, or instruction. I guess that's what I'm looking for. Instruction.
Yeah. That's all it was run. Nothing else.
Yeah.
Just run.
Just run.
And there wasn't even me looking around the room. Where did that come from?
Yeah.
It was just the word was so instinctive that I immediately responded. It wasn't even a second guess. Who's that? Where's that voice coming from? Why? It was no question. It was so strange.
Gotcha.
It was very soft. It wasn't a scream. It was very soft. Run.
Run.
And I ran. And
well, obviously you've run to something important, right? With your efforts and your work, and that's awesome.
And so, yes, I mean, as I said, working as a nurse with people as they pass over, I have seen so many things. And so I am open that, yes, on those occasions, there was a reason, and I had to run. And I'm still amazed that as I said, I'm the type of person that's like, well, why should I run? Well, why should I run too? Well, why do you want me to run? But I didn't. It was
just did it. Just ran. That's awesome.
Just literally just did it.
That's great.
And then was very, very glad that I had. And everyone, when I relate the stories, they say, because you were supposed to be here to tell your story. And I have to believe that to be true, because in all rights, I shouldn't be here.
You were saved for a purpose. I firmly believe that. Yeah. Tracey, I want to kind of wrap up with this question, and then I want to end with a quote, and then we're going to play a game. So that's kind of the rundown. So I think you've alluded to this enough, but I really want maybe a definitive statement here from you, just 100%. And I know you'll give it because you've been obviously very honest throughout this talk today. So why do you persevere?
Why do I persevere?
Yeah, why do you persevere?
Because I believe there's a reason why I was told to run. And I believe that my voice is to help children and teenagers, because I'm very fearful that we're going to lose an entire generation because of what they're having to deal with and what they're going through. And I really want to, I believe, purpose maybe, but I believe that I have the ability to do something good.
That's great.
And help them.
That's great. I think we all need to adopt that mindset, right? With a purpose to help. I love that. And that's probably, obviously leaning into your nursing background. That's probably one of the reasons why you got into nursing is to help, for sure. So I came across this saying, and I'm curious what you feel about this. I'm wondering why you think people should embrace this. And so here's the saying. It says, you must find courage to leave the table if respect is no longer being served. Why do you think people should embrace that?
Why should they embrace that? Oh my goodness. Because we are worthy of so much more. I mean, we're all on this planet as equals. No one is better or of less worth than anyone else. And I mean, everyone needs compassion and kindness and understanding, respect. We are all deserving of it. And so but we should also give it to others freely. I mean, my mantra this year is sprinkle kindness everywhere. And so if you're in a situation, a job, a relationship, whatever, where there's not respect, then that means they have no value for you. And you are so much more than that. And you have to walk away, because you will find the people that will value you and see the good things in you and will invite you into their life. I've had to go through this on a personal level since the rabbit hole. I've had to leave many tables. But you have to, I think, to be true to yourself. To be true to yourself, and I say open your heart and spread your wings.
Amen to that. I like that too. I like that too.
People will hold you back because they don't want you to do what your purpose is or what you want to share with others. And you've got to be true to yourself. And just say, I value myself much more than you. And so I'm moving away now. There's so many more tables out there.
There's so many more tables out there. Absolutely. Yeah. I love that a lot. Tracey, we always play a game on our show. So we kind of want to end our show with this game. And then I want to give you one final thought, of course. So our game is called Senseless. And so it involves the 5 senses, of course. And then, of course, the number 6 is a wild card. So you're going to trust me that I'm going to give you the right number. So I'm going to roll on your behalf here. And you got a number 5. So we're going to ask this very question, which is this. What is your favorite thing to taste?
Chocolate.
Do you have a certain kind? Like, I know there's dark chocolate, there's white chocolate, there's all kind of other chocolates. Or you're just you don't care if it's chocolate, you're doing it, right?
I prefer milk chocolate.
Okay.
But I prefer milk. Yes, I prefer a good milk chocolate, but it's just that tiny piece that you put on your tongue and you let it start to melt. That's what I like.
That's where it's at. Okay.
Yeah.
So Tracey, last word for you. How can people get in touch with you? I know your book's on Amazon. We'll link that in our show notes. We'll link, of course, your website as well. But give the website, give that information out, if you will, too. So how can people reach you?
So the best thing is actually through my website, because it connects not only to my social media sites, but also they can email me. So that's www.traceymaxfield.com. And if they don't remember my name and they just put in rabbit hole, amazingly, I come up.
You do. Thank you, Google, for that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, Tracey, thank you so much. We'll see if this works. There we go.
Thank you.
I always like it when the sound effects do work and play in sync with what we're talking about. My guest today, Tracey Maxfield, her best-selling book, we could say, Down the Rabbit Hole, Escaping the Rabbit Hole. I think I got that right. Escaping the Rabbit Hole.
Yeah, Escaping the Rabbit Hole.
Yes, she's been an amazing guest today, guys. Go out and check out her book. If you'd like to know more about Tracey, those will be linked in the show notes as well, or just rewind it a little bit and you'll hear that as well. She gave that website information. I want to say thank you, and I just want to say, remember this: when you walk in other people's shoes, you really do get a different perspective on life. Again, I want to thank my guest one more time, Tracey. She's been very candid and open today. And stay tuned next week. We have so much more in store for you, and I hope you can hang out for that as well. So, of course, this has been Other People's Shoes, and, of course, I am your host, Neil Matthews. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening to Other People's Shoes. I, of course, am your host, Neil Matthews. Thank you so much for giving us a few moments this week. I don't know about you. I am excited to get my hands on Tracey's book. I hope you are as well. And speaking of that, we are actually going to be giving a copy away of her book, Escaping the Rabbit Hole, A Journey Through Depression. We're going to be giving that away on our social media, so please stay tuned for that. Like us on Facebook under Other People's Shoes to stay up to date on that and to maybe find out how you can get your copy on it. Of course, follow us on Instagram as well. We'll be announcing it there as well. So we are under OPS Podcast Show. Follow us there on Instagram. And, of course, we'll tweet it out to you as well under at People's Shoes. So follow us there as well to try to get your copy of Escaping Through the Rabbit Hole, A Journey Through Depression. By the way, if you'd like to hear future episodes of this show or maybe some past ones to kind of catch up, that can be done at opspodcast.com. There, of course, you can hear past and present episodes of this show. Of course, next week, Wednesday to be specific, we try on another pair of shoes with my very good friend Catherine. Catherine's going to be diving into a subject that I think we all struggle with. What that is? Well, you'll just have to stay tuned for Wednesday to find out. And I just want to remind you, as I do so often, remember, when you walk in other people's shoes, you really do get a different perspective on life. I, of course, am your host, Neil Matthews. Can't wait till Wednesday when we try on another pair of shoes with my good friend Catherine. Until then, thank you so much.